Welcome to Get Paid for Your Pad, the definitive show on Airbnb hosting, featuring the best advice on how to maximize profits from your Airbnb listing, as well as real-life experiences from Airbnb hosts all over the world. Welcome. We are your hosts, Josefa Kapadia and Jasper Rivers.
Get paid for your pad. 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 Get paid for your pad.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Get Paid for Your Pad. Today we have a guest all the way from the Netherlands, and his name is Pieter Schols. Did I say that right, Pieter?
Yep, that's completely right. Hi guys.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm just fine, thank you. And yourself?
We are good. We are excited to get another show underway. And before we dive into all the good, fun Airbnb stuff, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and get into your story?
Well, I'm Pieter. I'm 38 years old, and I have a house in Amsterdam. I bought it together with my wife, and we are now lucky to have 2 children, so we decided it was time for us to move out of the city to live in the woods with our little kids. So I'm renting out my place in Amsterdam. I still have it. I'm renting it out on Airbnb now, and I'm living in the woods. So that's me.
And when you say you're living in the woods, can you describe that a little bit? Do you have a cottage or a cabin or something?
Well, that's exactly what it is. We are renting a cottage in a vacation park, as we call it here in Holland. They're all wooden cottages, not too big, but they're. I literally, when I turn around and look outside, I see the forest. So I really live in the middle of nature, and with 50 or 60 other little houses on one park, and it's beautiful. I really love it.
It sounds really pretty. And have you always sort of been a nature kind of guy who wanted to surround yourself sort of in the woods and all that?
Well, for the last few years, I became that more and more. Yeah. Before that, I used to live in Amsterdam for 10 years, and before that, I used to live in Delft for another 15 years. Or that's not true. In total, 15 years. But when I was young, I grew up in nature as well. And I don't know, I love it. It's relaxing, and it clears the mind, and gives me fresh air. And for the kids, it's the best place to grow up, I think, or we think, and we both agree to that. So that's why we live in the woods.
That's cool, Pieter. This is Jasper here, and I'm really excited to have you on the show because you're the first Dutch person that we interview. And as all the listeners probably know, I'm Dutch myself, so it's a very special interview. So, Pieter, can you tell us a little bit about how you got initially started with Airbnb?
Well, I can. Like I said, I live in the woods with my wife now. But before that, we bought a house together in Amsterdam, and after a couple of years, 3 years, we had a little breakup. So we broke up. And she moved away, so I was living in my house all by myself, in our house actually. And after 3/4 of a year, after a year almost, we came back together. But she had found another place, and I had my place. So now we had 2 places, and so we decided to stay in her place, to live in her place, and continue living there in Amsterdam. And yeah, that was the moment that I decided, so I'm going to have to rent my own place. And that's what I did. And it was in January 2011 that I started with Airbnb, because a friend of mine, told me about it. And I'd never, ever heard of it. And he told me about it, and I thought, wow, I have to check this out.
So you've been doing it for over 3 years.
Yes, I have. Yeah. My listing only has 5 digits. I think they're on 7 digits now. But I'm a very old Airbnb host. Yeah,
that's great. So I'm sure you have some good insights for our listeners. And what I wanted to ask you is, when you get started, did you have any like doubts about doing this Airbnb thing? Were you like worried about having random people stay at your house?
Well, actually, I really wasn't. No, I don't know. Somehow, when I registered myself on Airbnb, I intuitively kind of felt that I like the sharing community. I've always liked it, and when I saw it, I just thought it's okay. It's really, I felt at home at Airbnb, and I felt that my place was safe when I rented it out on Airbnb. Also because they have the validation check for both hosts, but also for the guests. So it felt good for me from the beginning. So no, I didn't really have that big doubt.
So it sounds
Actually.
it sounds like things have gone really smoothly, and that's not an uncommon thing. We hear that from everybody we've talked to. It's pretty remarkable because a lot of people have those doubts early on. I mean, it sounds like you didn't, but they do, and then they're almost unanimously proved wrong. So it's really cool. So when you started listing on Airbnb, was your place getting rented out all the time right away, or was there a lag period where you sort of were figuring out the system?
Yeah, in the beginning I was I was not using lots of smart tricks. I had no idea, so I figured it out a little bit by myself, and I was happy that I had guests, and I was waiting for new guests to arrive, and I wasn't really into it too much. I didn't do it for the money at first. I was happy to have somebody in my house, and I was happy when I covered my mortgage and my costs. So basically, I was already happy when I had covered that. And so at the beginning, I wasn't really into it like I am now.
And
I can say.
So, but early on, even before you ramped things up, were you covering your mortgage fairly easily?
Yeah, I was. Especially, I think in Amsterdam, there is like 8 out of 12 months where Amsterdam is very, very popular for tourists. So for those 8 months, it was really, really easy. And I made a little bit extra so I could cover the cost for the other 4 winter months without, it wasn't really a big hassle. No, not at all. No, for me, it wasn't.
That's really amazing. And after you started putting some more effort in, what happened then? How did the revenue change compared to your costs and everything?
Well, I did some smart tricks with the taxes, the tax regulations in the Netherlands, and so. I can tell you this, I'm not paying any income tax on what I earn with my property now, and which means that my net income, first of all, because of that, it rapidly increased, and second, because I started to become a little bit more professional in getting my property rented out almost like 80-90% of the month. So now I'm not only covering the costs of my mortgage and everything, but also I'm also covering the cost of the cottage in the woods here. So basically, I'm living for free now.
That's really great, and it's incredible what opportunities Airbnb can provide for you. And I use my income from my house to travel. You're using it basically to cover the rent of your other house, which is also pretty nice.
It is, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And just to you mentioned that you're not paying any taxes on your house. Could you clarify a little bit? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, I can. Well, in Holland, basically, I think all over the world, over what you earn, whether it's by working for a company or a loan that you get, or by any type of activities that you have to pay your income taxes. But in the Netherlands, if you address your property as a investment, which means it's not your main how do you say that? It's not the place that you actually live in, so you don't use it as a living place, but you use it as an investment. You only pay taxes for how do you say it in English? I don't know. but it's different. It's a lot less. You pay almost nothing on taxes on what you have as an investment. So by putting my house as an investment instead rather than as my living house, I could deduct a lot of taxes.
Right. I think what you're trying to say is that you're paying property taxes, or like what they call like a wealth tax, where the government assumes that you're making 4% return on your assets, which basically would include your house, and then they tax you 30% on that 4%, so you end up paying 1.2% on the value of your house, pretty much, right?
Yes,
which is really nice. Which is a really nice rule. I don't know if this, that's probably different in most countries, but it's definitely a nice rule for us Dutch people when you get involved in this type of activities. Just to clarify, Pieter, were you renting out just a room, or was it a whole house? Because I think you said you were living there when your girlfriend moved out. Was it?
Yep.
So you were renting out a single room, yeah?
No. I started straight away renting out my entire place. So I moved. I when my girlfriend and I broke up, she had her place. She rented a place somewhere else, and I lived in our house. And then I moved to her place, and I started out renting out my entire house.
Okay, that makes sense, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Can I say? Sorry. I just wanted to throw in hop Holland hop. Okay, go ahead.
Holland hop. I've been watching the World Cup with Josefa a few weeks ago, so he's really into the sort of soccer cheering tunes and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Pieter, you've been doing this for 3 years. I'm sure you've had a lot of different experiences with guests, and we always like to ask, what's your best experience so far?
Wow. Well, I've had I have a guest book, and every time when I read it, it makes me smile, and it happens very often that people just write nice things there. Kids make drawings and tell them what they've been doing, and sometimes I don't even meet the guests, but then when I read the books, I just I know that they had a good time. I know they had fun. I love my house. There's good energy in my house, and good energy attracts good people. So actually, I'm just really happy that I can provide a nice place, my place, to guests who come to Amsterdam, and that makes me only that idea makes me already happy.
Right, and that's actually a really good idea to have a guest book in your house, just like some hotels have, where guests can leave a comment or share their experience. And I totally agree with you that it's a very like fulfilling feeling to be able to share your house and your neighborhood with people from all over the world, and getting thank you emails from people it just really feels good, and it's a great experience.
Yeah. For instance, I was there this afternoon. I picked up the mail and stuff, and I was there, and because it was in between two bookings. And I found a letter. It was addressed to me. I opened it up, and there was a small note, and it said, "Thank you very much for sending back my passport." And there was some money left in it. So it was just a guy who left his passport, and he emails me, "Can you please?" And I send him the passport. He sends me a thank you note with some money. I mean, I didn't even. It's not about the money, but it's about the thank you note for, this guy is really happy that I just like that. I just love that, That's how it's supposed to be.
I wonder how he was able to go back to his country without his passport though.
Yeah. I don't know. No idea. You can buy fake passports in Amsterdam.
Or maybe he took a submarine or something.
I have no idea. I have no idea. That's what I really like. So yeah,
it's really,
even though I don't even always see my guests.
So, and then what percentage of the time do you usually try and greet them when they come in, or try and make that personal introduction?
Well, to be honest, I made my house into an investment. The law also says that I'm not allowed to do any labor on it, any activities on it. So I have somebody, a friend of mine, who's doing all the check-in, the check-out, and everything in Amsterdam itself. I live in the woods here. I don't see my guests anymore. I used to in the beginning. I did it all by myself, but now I don't see them. I only communicate with them via email, via Airbnb. But I leave it up to my friend who is in Amsterdam, who's my host actually.
I see.
So,
what's really remarkable about your story is the fact that you not only does your rental fund the mortgage payment, but it funds your living arrangements now, which is kind of unique from what we've heard. And I know you mentioned before that you had some great tips and tricks that you implemented to get this incredible level of success. Can you talk a little bit about some of the big light bulb moments that went off where things really started to click?
Well, things really started to. I got hooked when I started to see it as a game. I started to play with the prices. I started to play with the amount of people that I could. I increased my place from 4 to 6, and now even to 7 people. It's not allowed anymore in Amsterdam to have so many people without a permit. So I was going after getting a permit, and I finally got a permit. So now I'm allowed to do a little bit more. So I really got into the game of not only of using the Airbnb tools to get the best out of your listings, but also using the local regulations and thinking about smart ways. I did some tax tricks, I did some permit tricks, I did some other tricks. I was really active into it. I saw it as a game, and then it started. Then the revenue started coming in big time.
I see. And
so I did multiple things. Yeah.
If you had to tell our listeners one major thing, one really huge factor that played a big role, or your best tip, what would you say?
Ooh, well, that's a good question. Well, if you can put your house and address it as an investment, that really, that makes, like, I don't know, for most of the people, it's like 40% income tax that you don't have to pay, and that's a lot of money. So that's one thing. But if you can do that, and not all people can do that, because most of the people always live there as well, then the other thing that really helped me a lot was playing with the prices 1 month before the next month. I used to change the prices 1 month, 2 weeks to 4 weeks before, before due date. I would go down with the prices just to fill up the gaps, and that really started paying off big time.
Yeah, and that's a really good recommendation, because this is what I found as well for my house. Because you don't really have a lot of flexible costs. So every day that your apartment or house is empty, it's a lost opportunity. So you might as well lower the price quite aggressively towards the check-in date, like a few weeks or a week before. Even if you feel like it's too cheap, you still have an extra booking, an extra potential review, and which will help you raise in the Airbnb search rankings, and you get some word of mouth advertising as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really important step in being successful at Airbnb, just having a good pricing system in place. And this is probably one of the most important chapters in our book as well, where we developed a pricing system that people can pretty much like copy paste and just implement right away. And you'll see the results within a month or so. Pieter, I know that you are also active in the Airbnb community in Amsterdam, and you are doing some workshops. So I would love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yep, that's right. I do since a couple of months. No, let me put it the other way around. Amsterdam is one of the cities that has since Airbnb became bigger and bigger, it kind of exploded. And the city of Amsterdam, the local authorities in Amsterdam, they had no idea what to do with it because it outgrew. It outgrew a little bit the fun factor, and it became pretty serious. So it became a competition for the hotel industry. People were making really easy money and didn't pay any taxes. It started to become a little bit of a problem. So the city council of Amsterdam, they started to communicate a little bit about rules, the things that you were not allowed to, and all that kind of stuff. Started talking to Airbnb, and in October last year, I went to a workshop organized by a host who had invited Airbnb, who had invited people from the city council, who had invited a tax lawyer, who had invited another lawyer, and I was there as a host, and I was there with 60 people or 65 people, and it was a chaos. It was a big mess because the host who hosted the event, he had no idea what kind of questions came up. He hadn't briefed his speakers very well, so people on stage couldn't even answer the questions of all the people in the audience. And well, the chaos became even more and more bigger, and people had less and less any idea of what was allowed in Amsterdam to do and to not do. So I decided to do that myself and to do it a lot better. So that's what I've been doing for the last year. I've been, informing myself thoroughly with how does it work in Amsterdam? What are you allowed to do as a host, and what are you not allowed to do as a host? And how do you pay city taxes? How do you pay tourist tax? How do you pay income tax? How do you pay VAT? What are the tricks? What are the the smart tricks that you can get around some taxes or get around some other costs that you eventually don't have to pay? And in the end, also, if you don't follow the rules, what are the risks? Because a lot of people, there's so many people that don't know about the rules, so very likely they're not following the rules. And so I'm just trying to get some order in that chaos for hosts, and that's what my workshops are about.
That's great. I mean, I know there's a lot of confusion, not just in Amsterdam, cities all over the world. Local authorities are trying to figure out how to deal with Airbnb, and, some cities are trying to ban it, while others are trying to come up with regulation. So I'm sure you can help a lot of people by explaining what the rules are and kind of enabling people to do the whole Airbnb thing in a legal and in a legal way without running too much risk.
Yeah, so that's why I do.
I think that's really great. And you've been doing it for a couple months. Are you getting a lot of people, or?
Well, I'm starting small, so I've had like 50 people now in 4 workshops. I'm doing it in Dutch, and I started doing it in English just recently. And I try to organize every month a workshop, and I'm also thinking about some next steps, because people start coming back to me for some more deeper information. And when the situation becomes a little bit more too complex, I send them through to one of my tax advisors or lawyers or whatever they need specific information about, because I'm not a specialist on all those areas. I'm just facilitating help for people that need help on a specific area. So so I'm expecting I'm expecting it to grow big time. I absolutely do. Yeah.
Okay, and let's say our listeners are in Amsterdam and they want to know how to get in touch with you and how to, go to your workshop. Like, how can they do that?
Well, if they are already a host, they can join one of the groups. There's 3 groups in Amsterdam, and the biggest one is Hospitality in Amsterdam. So you can join it as a host. and I am publishing my upcoming workshops on that blog. So it's an Airbnb host blog, and so I think that's one of the easiest ways to get into touch with me and to get an idea when I'm doing new workshops. And just because I just started, I don't have a website yet. So I'm communicating via the blog of the Hospitality in Amsterdam Airbnb host group.
I see. Do you have any plans to? So, for example, I know you're an expert for the Netherlands, but what about neighboring countries or other regions? Do you have expertise in any of those areas?
Well, that's my next step. So first of all, I want to make sure that I have served all the Airbnb hosts in Amsterdam. But my next step is go to Utrecht, The Hague, Rotterdam, Eindhoven, all the other big cities in the Netherlands. And I'm also talking to a guy in London to go and start doing the same there. So it's just a matter of fact, I need to get the specialist to explain how the local rules are dealt with in different countries, but the setup is just going to be the same for every city all over the world. So hopefully I'll be in Los Angeles soon.
I know that for sure in the U.S. this would be in super high demand. We just had a guy on our last show who's a tax specialist. Now he helps people file their tax filings who live abroad. A lot of expats file their taxes in the US, and so he gave some really interesting tidbits. But for somebody like you who really makes this his bread and butter, all focused around Airbnb in particular, I think that would be a huge boon, especially here in the States. So we look forward to you hopefully coming over and setting something up in LA. That would be great. One thing I just wanted to mention, we talk a lot about the hostility that Airbnb is facing from hotels and government authorities, but it is important to note that while there is hostility occurring in cities like New York City, San Francisco, etc., there are governments that seem to be embracing Airbnb, especially as of late. Recently, both in the UK, there was a government official who recently talked openly about how Airbnb is the wave of the future. We need to embrace it, and is starting to set up some regulations to open up the doors for Airbnb. A similar movement is happening in France as well. And Paris is a massive city for Airbnb hosting. So I just wanted to point that out, that as there sort of seems to be this pushing back against Airbnb, some people are embracing it, as they should.
Well, the city of Amsterdam has also done a gesture, because they've allowed every host in Amsterdam to rent out their place for a maximum number of 60 nights per year, which was it was inhaled as a big success here for the Airbnb community, because otherwise you had to have like a permit, and there were only a limited amount of permits to be given away, and they're all given away now. It's only 800 out of the 6,000 hosts. But now for the other 5,200 hosts, the city of Amsterdam have given them some kind of a gesture by allowing them to rent out their place for the 60 nights per year. So in Amsterdam, there's also there's an opening to embrace the Airbnb community in the city of Amsterdam.
It's beautiful. The sharing community, the sharing movement, it's happening. We need to embrace it, and these sound like steps in the right direction. So that is terrific. Pieter, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have you on the show. You gave our listeners a bunch of really, really good wisdom. And if people want to contact you, I know you've given your contact information already, but by the way, guys, we're going to have all that stuff in the show notes. You can check out our show notes at www.getpaidforyourpad.com/podcast. You can also download the first 3 chapters of our book on Airbnb hosting entitled Get Paid for Your Pad. That's at getpaidforyourpad.com. One more quick announcement to all our listeners. Our Airbnb book will be available on Kindle August 26th. All right, it'll be available on Kindle August 26th. But not only that, if you sign up and try and get our book on the 26th, you'll be able to get the book for free. All right, so guys, be on the look for that. Anyways, Thank you, Pieter, again. This was a terrific show, and guys, we'll see you next time.
Get paid for your pet. 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 Get paid for your pet.